Hello and welcome to Rear Winging It, the Formula One podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Ledwell, and I'm joined by my longtime co-host and friend...
Harry McKay. Very glad to be called a friend there.
Oh, yeah, friend. Well, you have a gun to my head. And our short-time co-host, long-time brother...
Long-time brother. Kieran Ledwell. Very long-time brother now. Old man.
Very long time. He's nearly 26, ladies and gents.
Oh, God. At time of recording, 25. But
yeah. But your age... You must feel ancient when you see the age of the drivers these days.
That's true. That is true. And what a great segue, Els. Straight into it then. Sprint qualifying. Being the youngest ever front row with, was it Antonelli and Piastri? 21 years and 143 days combined age.
So that was for
average age.
The sprint qualifying. So Antonelli's the youngest ever pole sitter. Obviously, it was in a sprint race, not in the for the actual qualifying. But
very impressive.
It's pretty.
It counts.
It's very similar.
The way the media reports it, they kind of treat sprint qualifying like qualifying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a few minutes shorter each session, but it's very similar. It's not the same as a sprint race versus a race, is it? Sprint quali versus quali.
At the end of the day, everyone's had a chance to
very impressive
to get a time and you come out fastest, whereas the race being a third distance doesn't feel quite the same, So yeah, fantastic from him. Really, exactly. I mean, wow. I'd like to say you could see it coming, but I think maybe eventually in his career that Mercedes is looking better, but I definitely didn't expect it this early.
Yeah, it's definitely see it coming in terms of his career, but this season and this 6 races in, I think it's very impressive indeed.
And this weekend in Miami, he did seem comprehensively faster than Russell, and this is a track he would have never been to before, presumably. So
no, I think it was the first time for him. Yeah,
so very impressive, especially after only one practice session. It's a Friday, you do one practice session and then you go straight in for the sprint qualifying. He'd been, he didn't have much experience around the track, and he put in a great performance. It was it ended up being a bit unfortunate the way the race unfolded. It didn't quite go to plan for him. He lost out at the start, and then he lost out again in the pits, as we'll talk about later. But altogether, I think he has had a very, very, very good start to the season. 6 races in now.
I'd agree with that. I think we kind of said at the start of the year he probably would have been the best rookie, or the best situated rookie in terms of the team he's in and stuff, but he's still proving, I think, that he is probably the fastest rookie that there is on the grid this year. I don't know if you agree, but I think for me, definitely the fastest rookie.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, overall, I think I'm quite impressed with the rookies, but definitely him, Hadjar,
so am I actually, yeah.
Behrman are the top 3, I'd say, for me personally.
Yeah.
The other 2 may be held back by their cars, but both put in good performances. But yeah, I think Toto will be pretty happy with his driver lineup at the moment. So yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, George is doing well as well. He's
Mr.
4
Consistency's
podiums?
back.
Yeah, he is very consistent.
Mr. Consistency's back on his perch.
People used to call him Mr. Saturday, but I think he's put him together good Sundays as well. We've seen him this season kind of commanding the team a bit more, choosing his own strategies. So I think he's definitely matured into being the team leader kind of figure this year. So.
And I mean, we're it's crazy because it feels like the season has started, but we're, I think, a quarter of the way through. And Russell's, I mean,
6 races. It must be 6 races.
Yeah, he's 4th in the championship, 6 points behind Verstappen. So, really staying in there.
That's quite impressive, actually. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that is, and he doesn't have a win, whereas Verstappen does. So when you think of those 6 points, that's I guess that is those 6 points. The difference between first and second is 7, obviously. We'll get on to the sprint race. A disappointing weekend again for Ferrari, and I don't think you can get any worse than Leclerc's sprint race or lack of sprint race.
Yeah, exactly. He drove as many laps in the sprint race as I did.
Yeah, so he crashed out. So it was wet, and the race obviously was impacted by the safety cars, but he's an experienced driver, and it was just a bit embarrassing, I guess. I don't know, Harry, what do you think?
Do you know, I was rushing back home from the pub, actually, to watch the sprint. So by the time I made it in time, I was really happy, turned it on. Didn't see the Leclerc crash because I turned it on literally on the dot when it was supposed to start. Obviously, that didn't quite go to plan. So I was really confused. I was like, where is Leclerc?
Where's Leclerc?
When the replay happened, I was like,
Yeah.
I saw the formation lap. Like, what is going on here? So yeah, not a great, but
Also,
it happens.
was it Tsunoda? He was supposed to start from the pit lane, and then because they went round under the safety car a couple of times. He was then allowed to start on the grid.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
That seemed odd to me because we'd never actually had the start procedure because it came up and said start aborted.
Yeah.
So it seemed odd that despite the fact that this race hadn't actually started, he was able to line up on the grid. It just seemed like there was no punishment.
Yeah.
It had, but it hadn't, because they didn't actually really start until 3. They'd gone around the track 3 times before the race actually really started.
Kicked off kind of thing.
It was just a bizarre start. I mean, I guess it's one of the things, like, they have to start at one point, and that is kind of the jeopardy of a sprint weekend, is they don't have all afternoon to do it, because you've got to go and do qualifying later on, right? So
yeah,
I think with it being a sprint, they had to start. Even if ideally they could have waited for it to get a bit drier, would have just meant they could start from a standing start, would have been a smoother race. I just don't think they had time to, because of the idea they had to get qualifying done that day as well.
Yeah, and also they need time for the teams to be able to change the cars, because they exit and enter the parc fermé regulations, and between the sprint race and the qualifying they can change the setups of the cars. So they need time to, if you've crashed, you need the time to fix the car, but you also need time to tweak the angles of things and all of that stuff.
I guarantee race engineers must hate sprint weekends. I guarantee the garages all hate them. They have to, right? Because the speed they have to turn those cars around. Yeah. Imagine being Leclerc's mechanic and seeing him crash, and all right, the sprint race now it's over. I've got to have this car ready to go again in about 3 hours time or whatever it was. 4 hours, It's just ridiculous.
And when we first had sprint races, you only got 3 points for finishing first, and now you get 8. So it is, I guess, it kind of makes sense because it's a third the race distance.
Well,
so
didn't it used to be that was your grid position for the Sunday as well, was where you finished in the sprint? Yeah.
Yeah. So you had qualifying, then the sprint race, and then the race. But I wasn't a fan of that personally.
No,
I don't know. Harry,
that's silly.
No,
we've kind of settled on this.
I like the separate
new format. Are you a fan of this?
Yeah, I like the separate qualifyings better. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, to be fair, qualifying often is more exciting. Like with these cars not having any of the problems of following, and especially at the moment being really close, just an extra qualifying session is really exciting. I could drop the sprint race. I don't care about that, but
extra qualifying.
Just an extra qualifying. Give the points for that, maybe. But
yeah.
Well, if that's an interesting idea though. If there was some kind of actually getting, I know it's like the age old thing. You only get points on a Sunday. It doesn't matter where you qualify. You have to finish a race, but I wonder what it would be like if they did actually introduce some kind of point for qualifying.
Just like a time trial thing.
Maybe that's too far flung. That's probably a bit too... Yeah. Maybe instead of a sprint, some kind of time trial.
That's what I think Monaco
imagine a track like Monaco.
Yeah.
Yeah, a track like Monaco. Well, because... I know we're so off topic here, but I know some... I think Formula E once trialled it where, it was kind of like... If you were the slowest lap, you got deleted, and they kept going round until
that's the
you can improve your lap time.
That's the new Mario Kart mode. If you're like
there
in the bottom bit, you get deleted.
Mario Kart, Formula E, you can see the confusion.
You can see the confusion. Yeah, both have power ups.
Both have power ups. Yeah, I was going
but
to say.
one has One has fans and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
Brutal.
That was unnecessarily mean. We'll get on to back to the sprint race. Though, as we said, there was quite a few safety cars. There was. So we spoke about Kimi Antonelli. He come into the pits to change his tyres as everyone was coming in, and I guess it's just the gremlins that have carried on in Red Bull with their pit stop, their light issues. I'm not sure if it was human error or a mechanical error, but they released Max into the path of Kimi Antonelli, which meant he couldn't get into the pits. But at first when I watched it, I was confused, but I hadn't really realised, he actually couldn't go into the pit. But when you watch it on the replay, his reactions, he definitely, Antonelli prevented a really serious, nasty crash in the pit lane.
Yeah.
He was really
he did really well with that. I mean, absolutely insane from Red Bull. Like, how the hell that ever happened? I don't care how many system errors and things you have. That was nuts.
Yeah.
They just fired him into another car essentially.
Yeah. And the fact that they had the errors last week, as we were saying, they should have had a lollipop man. Harry would have been the lollipop man, and he wouldn't have caused that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have someone who's looking the other way down the pit lane to the driver. You can see the car is there, and you hold up your red sign. Just
exactly.
That's just ridiculous.
How hard would that be?
Yeah, because we've not seen any bad crashes in the pit lane for quite a while now, thankfully. But that could have been something.
Yeah.
Quite bad, because they're still going. I know that they seem like they're trundling down there, but they're going at 80 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
That's some.
They're going fast enough. Yeah.
They're not people right there as well. Like that. I mean, their cars are massive. That would just be like a flipping bowling ball. Like, it would be brutal.
Yeah, they're 800 kilograms.
Yeah. A very large bowling ball.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see you pick that one up. But the safety car did kind of hand Norris the win, much in the same fashion as the main race last year. It did end
Miami safety cars and Lando Norris.
Yeah, it did end behind the safety car, but I think it was just, as you say, Kieran, they were just trying to get on with the race. They were trying to keep it in the time frame, because it did seem a bit odd at the end that it wasn't red flagged.
Yeah, there was no chance they were going to finish in racing conditions. I think they just said, we need this over now.
Just get it done with. Yeah, it's what it seemed like. It feels like it was a race.
Which is one of the, I guess.
It seemed like it could have lent a little bit more towards the red flag territory, but do you know what? Normally I'd be like, let's red flag it, let's get the racing in. I just thought, trundle around, get it over with, finish, which is not a great thing.
And get back to Harry's favourite part, which is qualifying. Harry's like, I don't want the racing, I just want the qualifying.
Can we just qualify?
Harry is the real Mr. Saturday.
We'll move on then to Harry's favourite part.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I do think that qualifying after a sprint race, the drivers must be tired. They must be emotionally and mentally a bit drained from it.
There must be. But I think if you look at the times, though, the main qualifying, the final times by the time they got to Q3 were a lot faster.
Yeah.
Well, they were faster than what Antonelli was achieving on the Friday in the sprint qualifying. So it is interesting to think how much tinker time the teams actually have for the cars, given they're in and out of Parc Fermé so much. But I think that is, at least you're seeing that. I think it'd be a real problem almost if you're seeing times that are slower in main qualifying because the sprint knocks it out. Then it really is having a detrimental impact on the core F1 product, which is qualifying and race, right? So at least I guess in that sense they are going faster.
Yeah, it was just over 2/10 faster. Pole.
Yeah, that's quite
pole
big.
To pole. So
Leclerc obviously had the benefit of not being in the sprint race, and he did out-qualify. He did out-qualify Hamilton. Hamilton out in Q2, but there wasn't a huge gap between Leclerc and Hamilton on that Q2 cut-off time. So that, I mean, the Ferrari's struggling. We know that it's struggling, and Hamilton's struggling, but it's not just that Hamilton's struggling. They are both.
Yeah, it's the
struggling.
car that's
they're both struggling.
Poor, really poor.
Yeah.
And then when you have the field this close, I mean, even a good driver coming to a new team, you're going to be that little bit off. And when the car's that close to P10 anyway, I mean, you're going to slip down every now and then.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. It's classic Ferrari, because it's not just pace, it's strategy, it's communications, it's
everything.
It's the whole package.
Yeah.
Because Williams were definitely
pace makes up for all sins. But
Williams were their closest competitors on pace this weekend.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing to say, given how
it's like the 90s with Ferrari Williams.
It's
but in the wrong end of the grid.
It's not really something I was predicting before.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
I guess I was gonna say, like, we didn't think Carlos Sainz leaving would be still fighting with the Ferraris after that. Like, I mean, he's outperformed them in some instances. I mean, it's pretty mental.
And that's a Sainz who's not even performing at his best, in my opinion. I think he's getting a bit more up to speed now, but he's still not quite at his best. So, and he's still able to compete with the Ferraris. When he manages to finally get the car, understand the car a bit better, he's probably gonna be faster than them as well. So.
Yeah, the idea that we think Sainz is struggling a bit because he's not getting past the Ferraris in the Williams is just a crazy sentence and it's crazy that's where we are in F1 right now, right? That clearly the Williams has more pace in the car, he can get out of it to be faster than the Ferraris. It's just ridiculous.
It is, yeah. But the McLarens, they did not lack pace this weekend.
No, they were rapid.
They were rapid indeed, but Verstappen pipped them both. Qualifying.
He's fantastic. Like, just that lap, right? His pole position lap.
Honestly,
he starts it off, and I think it's Crofty's given this little spiel about how he's a new dad and how he said that the speed wasn't going to affect him. Verstappen said, and then it was commentator's curse because he has a bit of it was I think it was a tad of oversteer.
Big moment.
Yeah. And
in turn 2, I think.
Literally right at the start. Can't remember. It might have been
Yeah.
Another driver had a very similar incident, and you could just see it. The lap was ruined. Right, you can't recover. So watching that, it was like, you just felt that dread. And then the times start to light up.
I thought it was over. Yeah.
And he still gets it on pole. It's just even with the slower car, it's just. What he can do in one lap.
It was after that wobble in turn 2.
Yeah, but then
when he still put in a purple sector 1, I was like, it's over.
When you looked at Lando's onboard as well, though, his lap was quite scruffy as well, so there was definitely pace for them all to have found. And Oscar was outqualified by Antonelli as well, so Antonelli outqualified Russell in both the sprint quali and the normal quali. So. They were very, very quick, but I think we saw perhaps quicker over the race than over the one lap. I think over the race, they hold on to their tyres much better, but I think that Verstappen's able to get them activated a bit earlier on in the lap, on a flying lap. He's able to get them more in that window than the McLaren drivers.
And I think we've also seen it goes for every car. I mean, in clear air, the cars perform so much better. But I think that sort of delta is greater for the McLarens. We really saw it this race with how far up the field they could get with that clean air.
Yeah, their ability to follow.
Yeah. So really, Verstappen's won that pace, and that Red Bull managing to light up its tyres quicker, I guess, is the only thing stopping this from, being bit more of a walkover season. So that is nice to see. Like, at least there's something giving it some competition.
We're at least seeing people overtake Max on the way to a 1-2. At least they have to overtake someone on the way to the 1-2 they're getting each week.
The Red Bull they say performs better in high and medium speed corners, so perhaps as we're approaching the European season, that time difference will decrease a bit, because a lot of the European tracks have fast, large, sweeping corners, whereas obviously we've had a few street circuits, and newer tracks that have tighter turns and slower corners, which suits perhaps the McLaren a bit more. So maybe the racing will be a bit closer in the next few races, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Definitely fingers crossed.
We say fingers crossed, but then one of the fastest circuits on the calendar is Silverstone, and I would quite like a McLaren 1-2 at Silverstone, so fingers somewhat crossed. I'll cross them and then uncross them for Silverstone.
Yeah.
So the biggest event of the weekend, the absolute highlight, and I'm sure you'll all agree, was the Lego
I knew you'd love this.
Parade.
I knew you'd love this.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was quite cool, actually.
Was it? I think it was like 22,000 hours it took to build those cars, and it took them one lap to destroy them.
Yeah.
To destroy them. Yeah. I mean, what do you expect? They're a bunch of kids, honestly.
Yeah. They were having a fantastic time, though, I think.
Yeah. It was nice to see them having fun for once, like, on these kind of, you know, just sort of other weekend event kind of things. Like,
yeah, it was a bit different. And normally on the drivers' parade, there's somebody interviewing them, so they were probably quite enjoying not having that. They're surrounded by the media so much. It was probably nice to have a drivers' parade where they could just relax a bit, as opposed to having to be answering questions and all of that nonsense. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But Alonso looked like he was having a fantastic time. He's the oldest one there, and he was the biggest kid.
It's probably the closest he's been on pace to other drivers this
season.
They
were.
He really struggled.
But I saw pictures of them afterwards, and I don't know what George Russell was doing to that Mercedes, but it came back the most dishevelled of all the cars. He was driving people into the wall and everything.
Lego's expensive. I'd be flipping prying pieces off and putting it in my pocket.
I know, yeah, that's a lot of money.
There was so much debris as well. If anybody's listening and hasn't...
That's like when they put a diamond on the front of an F1 car. Same value these days.
If anybody hasn't watched the race, the Lego Drivers Parade, I would recommend going and finding it and watching it, because it was quality entertainment.
Yeah.
It had a lot of action, but so did the actual race. There was plenty to unpack from that.
The actual
not as much fun, but I liked the Lego drivers. My last point would be that they were tandem.
Yeah,
and I saw somebody said on their bingo card that Albon and Sainz were going to have a falling out, and there was definitely an argument about which one of them was going to get to drive the car.
Yeah.
Albon was in the middle of an interview.
It's on my bingo card. That's the start. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
I needed a bit of needle to get in their heads. Just from that's what's going to spark it. That's what I need.
Yeah. So when they have a massive argument down the line, this is the origin.
It all started
of that.
here.
Well, no.
Yeah.
This is the opening scene of the documentary of the biggest fallout in F1 history. I'm telling you now. You've heard it here
and it was all because Sainz got in the driver's seat. Even though he wasn't supposed to.
Exactly.
So we'll go on to the race, and we'll stop being children. Max and Lando like to tangle a bit with one another, and there was a turn 2 incident. But this one, unlike in previous weekends where Max has been punished, there was no punishment for this one. Harry, do you think that was the right decision? I know you're Max leaning, so...
Yeah, obviously it was the right decision. If anything, Norris should have got a penalty. I think it was fine. But, look, I know you hear Lando, you hear where he's coming from, of how he thinks, you know, he has to yield the corner or Max will crash, but I mean, there was the bit afterwards where he's talking.
Yield the corner, then
you can see Piastri's face, and he kind of looks a bit surprised at it, because to me it's just you're not quite far enough alongside. You haven't quite got your elbows in there enough.
No.
And so you're sort of half-heartedly done it. Well, what do you expect? You're not going to make it. You're going to fall back, and then you know, because you've half committed, you compromised your corner, and you're going to fall back places. I mean, what he should have done is either commit. If you see a weakness, you go for it, or you're in the faster car. Be smart. Think about it. Get him on the next corner. Get him a lap down.
He
all you're
should have
doing
been
is
more
throwing away
patient.
places.
Yeah, he lost 3-4 places at the start.
He threw away a race win.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He threw away a win. Like,
Or
threw away a
potential
win.
for it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and all I will say though is that Max locked up and then slid. So he locked up in 1 and then he kind of slid a bit in 2.
Yeah.
So it
Slid
wasn't
into
as
2.
if he was under control in the car. So Lando did have to take avoiding action because Max had kind of lost a bit of control. But I still think he...
Yeah, he's just a bit slidey.
He should have bided his time and he should have got him on the next lap or, a few corners later. Because, he, as you say, he had the faster car. And once Oscar was past Max, it took him a while to get past Max. But once he was past Max, the clean air, he shot off down the road 10-odd seconds.
Yeah, that one in the race.
Yeah, exactly. Getting past Max a bit quicker than Lando was able to. It definitely... That was, that is obviously where he won the race.
I mean, this was the best part of the race for me personally. Just some really good racing, I felt, over multiple laps. It was nice to see Max and Oscar like clearly respecting each other out there on the track, which was nice. And just the actual overtake that Oscar made, where he makes he sort of fake goes round the outside, lets Max try and cover him, but then brakes a bit early, pulls back in, and goes on the inside. I mean, really nice.
Let's move a commit.
Yeah, and then gets like the better traction. Once he's done it.
Yeah, I know once he's done it, Max learns very quickly. He's obviously aware of it, but Norris comes up, doesn't attempt the same thing, makes a few scruffy attempts, is stuck there for a lot longer, and it just made me think, we've talked about the sort of quality of both drivers obviously being very high, but maybe Piastri's starting to pip him, and I think this kind of showed that his racecraft is just that little bit better, especially when it comes to battling. Obviously
more
Norris is
level-headed.
fast, but
easily.
Yeah,
in terms of battling, Piastri, I think, is so much better at attacking, overtaking, maybe even defensive driving compared to Lando. I did make a note watching Oscar get past Max and the way he did and the speed he did, and then watching Lando struggle, have to give a place back because he overshot into a corner, pushing him off. I think it was turn 2 again. Lando actually forced them both off the track, had to give it back, had to do it again. It kind of didn't really cost him in the long run, but it was just for such a clean, the nature of F1, it being so chaotic, like, it's not very often you get an absolute clean comparison. And if that's like a clean comparison of both their driving styles, it spoke a lot at how much better at that part of the game,
I think
as
Lando
it were, Oscar is,
lost
at least in
the
my
race in turn 2. I don't think him getting stuck behind Max in that stage necessarily cost him the race, because I don't think he would have got past Oscar necessarily, but it was telling. He did struggle, but I think as well Max had learned, that's the one place in the lap he's likely to get past me, and then was much more smart to that move being repeated on him. So Lando was in a worse position than Oscar, but Oscar managed to solve the puzzle a bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a bit off tangent, but I think it was last race we saw Russell overtake someone in a quite unusual spot, and I know the commentators were quite impressed, and I think it'll be interesting to see as well throughout the season if we get a similar kind of thing from Lando, just that sort of moment of oh wow, that's quite brilliant. You've thought of that on the spot. You pull out a nice move. Obviously we see moments of greatness with Max all the time, and over the last few seasons, we know Russell's quality. We've seen that. Can we see something similar with Lando? Is he gonna give us that extra hint of actually he's got the goods and he can take it this season? Because so far I don't know if we've seen that. Not this season anyway.
No, and some of Oscar's overtakes this season and also last season, thinking about it, were so spectacular, was so good. And I think this week I think Lando just did Max down the straight.
Yeah.
You know, and fair enough, that gets the job done. But
exactly,
he did him down the straight 5 laps too late. You know what I mean? Compared to Oscar taking a lap and a half and doing it like he did in
Max,
that corner.
Even though he did drive well up until that point, you know, he had the McLarens up, he was doing well. He did then end up with the virtual safety car. It kind of derailed him a bit. He ended up behind Russell, and he never really had the pace, I guess, to climb back through. Maybe it was the not being able to run in clean air kind of thing, or they were on different strategies, I guess. So it was interesting to see. He seemed to have quite a lot of pace, but the Mercedes maybe is faster than the Red Bull. It's hard to tell whenever, you know, I think they're just close on pace. Yeah,
they're at least equal.
It's hard to tell, like, as well.
Which, to be fair, that's actually quite accurate. Go on, Harry.
Well, I was going to say, like, because it's who you compare it to, right? Like, you compare it to Tsunoda, or the Mercedes are faster, but just to Verstappen, I think it does have the edge. But you know, this track clearly the Mercedes was more suited to. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah,
I think the Mercedes is a bit more on and off.
Yeah.
When it comes to tracks, and this was definitely an on track for them. So, like you say, when we get to the European season, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But I think they've, you know, and they've shown as well, they've got good enough drivers that when it isn't on track for them, they're going to kind of maximise points. You know, it's a decent weekend for Mercedes.
And Antonelli
overall.
had a good weekend. He's been unlucky this season in times, but I think.
I mean, he did. I was going to say he messed up. The start of the sprint race, didn't he? Obviously coming in with pole there, but it's not one you can hold against him. I don't think. Rookie, a lot of pressure. I don't think it did again. And then again, really didn't let it go to his head. Had a great race, I think. So all these drivers are fantastic. So having that mental game takes the edge sometimes.
Yeah, but a driver pairing that's not going fantastically well, as we said, was the Ferraris. They were, I think they're just stirring the pot a bit, I think, in Ferrari, because they're telling Leclerc, oh, give the place back, or Hamilton's going to give you the place back, and then they're not telling the other driver, oh, he's going to give you the position back at turn 17. And the other driver has no idea. He's not been asked that yet. It was all a bit...
multiple laps after it's been requested, and they have not informed the other drivers. As soon as they, like, Hamilton trying to get past, you know, Leclerc, fresher tyres, it was multiple laps before they'd asked Leclerc. As soon as they asked him, he said yes. Yeah. So what is the problem?
Yeah, he said yes immediately.
What is the problem? What's the hold up?
Because I fully... on listening, on like watching the race and like, you know, the commentary and the audio clips you're given, I was fully under the impression that like we're about to hit, it's like, oh, we haven't actually heard the other side.
Yeah.
I was fully under the impression we were about to hear them cut to Leclerc saying, no, I'm not doing it like 4 times. Instead, they said in race, you know, in Sky Race Controls, where they were like, oh yeah, he was asked first time and did it. It's like,
yeah.
That entire time Lewis was begging for it. They weren't even asking Charles for his opinion, let alone telling him to do it.
By the time they've done
unbelievable.
it, the mediums were going off and the hards were coming into their own. So if they've done it at the time, they'd have had a much better shot at chasing down Antonelli. But because they couldn't get their ducks in a row, or they went off to make a cup of tea whilst they were making the decisions, as Hamilton suggested, they shot themselves in the foot there. But it wasn't an issue of team orders not being accepted or being ignored. It was just that they weren't giving the orders, and it seems so strange. You know, we talk about their strategy all the time, but it was so simple.
It's just the speed of their strategy. It's just whether it's the right decision or the wrong one. The wrong decision is the one that takes the longest time, no matter what that decision is, right? I think F1's so true for that. Like, taking the time to be so meticulous, that is the error you're making, right? Like, the error isn't yes or no, it's taking so long to deciding yes or no. It's just, it's bizarre that a team with that much history and that much experience doesn't know those kind of basics. Because I don't know about you, I was sitting at home saying they need to swap him. They need to swap him. You know, you sit there and watch it, and for 4 laps you say, why hasn't this happened? Or it's 3 or 4. I think it was the 3rd or 4th lap it happened. It's like the whole planet watching knows this needs to happen, and they somehow don't know that. It's ridiculous.
It was. It seems so like naive and so unprofessional, and that they're like the oldest team, they're the most experienced team, they've done this more times than anyone else, and yet it's like the fundamentals and the basics that they're getting wrong. But we also did hear on the radio a bit of unhappiness over at Williams with I'm faster, let me through kind of thing, and that was obviously that had all started from the Lego race, as Kieran said.
Yes, obviously all comes back to it.
Yeah, I told you. Chapter 1 of the book of the biggest scandal in F1 history, which is brewing away slowly, is going to be that Lego race. I'm telling you now.
I think Williams had a good result this weekend. Sainz still, I don't think, is quite there. But I think Albon's a fantastic driver, so maybe Sainz just isn't as good as him. I don't know.
I think his qualifying pace is getting much better. It hasn't entirely borne out in the races yet. I don't know. I'm not ready to say like Albon's definitely going to be quicker. Like he's that much better. I think I'll hold out, reassess halfway through the season. Maybe that's a bit of a chicken move, but I still have confidence that it's going to be a lot more even. Yeah,
but
I think we can, in a way, boil it down to like, regardless of quality, like they're both clearly great drivers, no matter what form they're in. But I think it's just that you can even boil it down to like, Sainz has come into a new team and is still learning. You know, he's been there for 6 races, versus Albon's been there for enough years, and clearly is just in amazing form right now, and having, I don't know, elite post his Red Bull days, as it were, definitely his best season in F1 so far. I think maybe it's just the timing, you know, someone coming in, taking their time to adapt, and not even doing badly really for a midfield team, versus someone having an amazing season. You know,
I think maybe it's as easy as that. Is obviously more, like the amount of points Sainz has got is more than the rest of Williams drivers from the last 3 seasons or something like that. You know, so he's doing doing well.
Exactly.
He's just, as you say, I think Albon's
so 7 points.
More than George Russell ever got there.
George Russell finished second in a.
He got second,
in a race with 2 laps.
Oh, God.
And no racing.
Yeah.
I forget about, because there was no racing, I forget about that every time.
So, Kieran, would you like to share your fact with us about McLaren?
Yes, my fun fact. So, obviously, we said already how fast the McLarens were, but to put it into perspective, this was the most dominant McLaren 1-2 since Monaco in 2007. So,
puts into
18 years. The most dominant 1-2 for them in the last 18 years. Probably, I don't know, thinking of the dates, but that's probably from around the time Antonelli was born. And it
actually would have been.
And Piastri was 37s ahead. Yeah, it's probably tight if you do the maths. And Piastri was 37 seconds ahead, the nearest constructor. So ahead of Russell, 37 seconds ahead of Russell. So
who won?
Just goes to show
in Monaco
the period of dominance. This weekend, the dominance.
Would have been
2007.
Alonso and Hamilton.
I mean, it would have been Lewis or Alonso.
Because that would have been Hamilton's rookie season.
I want to say it was Alonso. Let's have a look. Monaco 2007 winner to Fernando Alonso. God, my knowledge.
It was 50-50.
My wheel knowledge, guys. Jeez.
I bet he had a heck of a Barnet back then as well.
Still won. Yeah, he looks majestic in the photo.
It was probably him. And
whilst we're on the topic of Alonso, though, no points again.
Yeah,
still
and he's
no points
the
for
only
Alonso
other people
this
who
year.
haven't scored points this year are rookies, I believe. Bortoletto and the like.
Alonso is a perennial rookie, isn't he? As he says, he is the rookie.
Yeah,
so
he's been unfortunate in times, but he's also not been performing well.
Yeah, Stroll has scored points
he's not had a
3 times this season, so just put that into perspective. Maybe this is Stroll's comeback. All you had to do was put a 90-year-old man in
He
the
never
car,
left.
in the other car, and he'd beat him. Who'd have thought
Yeah,
it?
who'd have thought it?
No, I think it's just clear that Aston Martin
It's
hasn't really lived up to the
terrible.
expectations that we. I think people were getting ahead of themselves. Like, I don't know if we probably did it ourselves a bit, but I think people got a bit ahead of themselves knowing that Nui was coming in, and it didn't really affect the year's car.
I was saying that so many times. I was saying.
I still think they've been below,
I was reminding
below
people all
expectation.
the time.
But it's not just that.
But Nui didn't start until March.
No, it's beyond just.
It's the amount of investment, though. It's the wind
people
tunnel
don't
coming
listen to us.
online. It's all the people they've
Yeah.
hired. Like,
Exactly.
all signs should point to like that.
Going
team
But
over
I
the
think if
budget
they're a
cap.
2026 project.
Yeah, maxing the budget every year when teams around them don't max it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have to.
Yeah, you can say they're a 2026 project though, but how many years
Yeah,
have
I
they
mean,
been in F1 now?
I get the point, but the new wind tunnel just finished, the new factory, everything that's coming new, it takes time for the investment to filter through, and it takes time to get the right people in charge. It takes time to set up that balance. If you look at
Yeah.
a McLaren,
That's not wrong.
they obviously have Bahrainian
okay.
investment these days, but it takes time. Even like 3 years ago, they didn't have quite the right formula of drivers and of principals and of, you know, people at the top, and they just took a few small changes, and now they're the best team on the grid.
Yeah. I agree with you, right? Totally agree with you. But and you know, having that slow march of getting slightly better, and then in between they're having off seasons, you know, it's not always going to be a straight up shoot. That's totally expected. And
Yeah, it's not a linear curve.
yeah, and things do take time. But you know, Aston Martin were getting podiums not long ago. Like they had that brief stint of form. So something
3
has
years
gone
ago,
wrong.
They have regressed.
Yeah, they've gone not just
I agree with
backwards,
that.
they've gone from the front of the grid to close to the back. I mean, that's not good. You can write this season off, whatever, but yeah, I think if they're at the same position next year, I mean, they need to start asking questions.
Yeah, I think if I guess the
something.
thing is with
Exactly.
Lawrence Stroll is he's not really looking for a return on his investment. He's not. Most owners, you know, we saw it with like Haas when they weren't performing well. They went and made changes. They got rid of Gunter Steiner. They brought different people in, and the team is doing a bit better. It's not a groundbreaking, but I guess it's a different. It's a different setup, isn't it? Because he bought the son for he bought the car, the team for his son to have a seat. So maybe the return he wants is his son to be a world champion, but maybe he'd be content as long as he has a seat. I don't know.
No, and I want to be a trillionaire, but
Yeah.
some things in life just don't happen, do they? Like, he's got to wake up and smell the coffee on that one if he still thinks Lance Stroll's going to be a world champion one day.
Like the amount of money he has, right? Do you think it would be better? Like if I owned, say McLaren, right? McLaren, they're fastest at the top of the grid. I want the two best drivers in that car, unless you offer me $1 billion, and then I want the best driver possible and also Stroll.
Yeah.
Like that's the drivers. So maybe it would have been a better idea to just offer one of the top teams loads of money and buy that seat for Stroll, because this whole build the whole team thing clearly is not the right way to go about it.
No, clearly.
We'll move on
If you put
to a segment I like to call
I don't know.
Radio Check.
Radio check.
And this week, we're going to be playing in the Ferrari and Hamilton conversation. So, for the context,
Polite way of putting it.
it was when they were seesawing between Hamilton and Leclerc, who was, you know, going to be where. And I think, was it after he'd let Leclerc through, they said Sainz is 1.4 behind, just for the context, so we knew. And then Hamilton replied, "You want me to let him past as well?"
You can go back in shock 6 and Sainz 1.4 behind.
You want to let pass as well?
So
Yeah.
he was definitely
Showing his
frustrated
frustration.
on the
That's
radio.
polite way of putting it. Yeah. Well, I think it was before that when they eventually decided to let him pass. It was like, yeah, we'll let you pass, and he was like, yeah, have a tea break whilst you're at it. And I was like, I don't know how many Italians would have got that one.
Yeah,
They don't really have tea breaks there, but I quite enjoyed that one.
It's more like
yeah,
espresso.
Yeah, but I thought it was quite. It's quite funny when you hear them.
But as
they're driving so quickly, and it must be using so much of their brain, and yet they're still able to be a bit bitter, a bit sarcastic, a bit salty. Yeah,
have capacity for anger. Yeah, exactly. But as Crofty said, no cappuccino breaks. That's only before 11 a.m. So Lewis got that right at least. Now he just needs to learn it's espresso, not tea. But then if he goes around saying have an espresso break whilst you're at it, I don't know if that would go down too well. That might be seen as a little bit offensive if you start shouting that out.
We'll take a deep dive now into our rookies in our rookie roundup. We've spoken obviously about them all, but we'll just go through them and their weekends a bit. Antonelli, do you think this weekend he was the fastest Mercedes? I know that Russell ended up on the podium, but do you think over the whole weekend Antonelli was the fastest?
I think so. I mean, clearly in a qualifying format, right, he definitely was. I think it's one of those things, I think, where we've got kind of generating the opinion that Lando might be better with race pace, but Oscars are better at race craft. Maybe it's one of those weekends where just George having that race craft, having a bit of good fortune, meant he finished higher. But just on pure pace, I'd say Antonelli was probably...
And I guess Antonelli's so young, racecraft is something, I know that some people have it like instinctively, but it is something you can learn a bit more, and as you get a bit more... Exactly, he's so young.
Yeah. Well, he's 18, right? Yeah, he doesn't have that much experience.
Even in the junior formulas, he progressed through them so quickly, he's not had that much experience in single-seaters. So.
Exactly, yeah. We're going to see a lot of his growing happen in F1 itself. Kind of similar to Verstappen, like he is going to grow whilst being at the top level, which is almost scary. It's scary to think he's going to use these first few years to develop whilst he's already at the big show. You know, that's quite a scary thought of how good he could be.
We've also been impressed with this season is Hadjar. So he's got a new teammate now, Lawson.
Yeah,
he out-qualified Lawson in both the sprint and the normal qualifying. And then in the race, he finished in P11, so just outside the points, and it was a Lawson DNF. So Lawson, who's a bit older, who's been in Formula One for, a bit of last season as well, Hadjar is comprehensively better than him. Do you think that's fair to say, Harry?
Yeah, I think so. Lawson, he's been getting a lot of scrapes. Like, not always his fault, but... Yeah. At the end of the day, like, I don't know, he's putting himself in these situations, I think.
Law sock on.
And he doesn't have it's not like you can say, well, but when I do finish, I've got the pace. So I think it's clear that Hadjar's faster. I don't think Lawson's like terrible. Like he's not massively off the pace. If he can keep the car on track, that would help. Like and maybe just I don't know. Trying to avoid getting into these situations where someone else hits him. But
he was quite unlucky. Yeah, he was unlucky in the main race. He was quite unlucky.
That's the thing. Like it's like this wasn't his fault. But...
The incident with Alonso in the sprint was ridiculous. That was definitely his fault. Like he went for a
surprised Alonso didn't kill it.
Just impossible. Yeah. Honestly, it's one of those get out of the car and give him a slap on the head situations.
People say you make your own luck, and maybe Lawson's. You can't always be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's a few incidences where it could be genuinely the other person's fault, but if it's always the other person's fault, it's probably actually your fault. But
it's like the mum of a kid whose kid always ends up in the wrong crowd every time. It's like maybe they're the wrong crowd.
Yeah, that was Kieran.
Old fashioned analogy
crowd.
There, but
he's very dodgy. Underage drinking, I heard.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Bortoletto.
Drinking, smoking, drugs, you name it. That was me.
When Mum slammed the boot on his car, boot of the car on his head.
Yeah.
That is true. She didn't abuse him, I promise.
Shout out Mum for that one.
Let's get back to it. We don't want child protection to come around.
Anyway, she's gonna kill us for that.
Outqualified Hulkenberg for the race, but he was 4 rookies DNF'd and Bortoletto was one of them. It was not a good race for the rookies, but we kind of said going into
it
there's
really
going to
wasn't.
be
No,
6
tough
rookies going around a circuit they've not done before, so we thought it was going to have quite a lot of instance, but 4 of the 6 to not finish.
Yeah, well, he was mechanical, right?
But they're still like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
it's not his fault.
Yeah,
well, something we didn't mention, that we did actually have 2 like mechanical DNFs this weekend, which
Behrman as well.
Yeah,
even 5 years ago, that it wouldn't even touch the sides. That happens all the time. Like, you wouldn't even think about it. But 2 in the same race these days is actually quite a lot. Like, it kind of puts back to how reliable the cars are, that I even like noticed it. I was like, oh, another mechanical. Whereas like back in the day, that would happen. You know, by lap 20, you'd have 3 cars out with
just
blown up engines.
Engines give up, but the cars have become more reliable. But as we say, Behrman was another one who had a mechanical issue, but he didn't have a good weekend at all.
Yeah, so it was those 2 on the board. No.
I think it was an off weekend for him.
Yeah, big time.
So not going to read too much into it. I think he's been quite strong. But then that has seemed really up and down weekend as well. So
yeah, it's another one of those cars that has to be in the right window, doesn't it?
It definitely seemed a bit unsteady this weekend. Ocon struggled in it as well. So Doohan outqualified Gasly for the first time, I believe, in this race.
And his reward?
Yeah. How dare you?
So Doohan is gone. Doohan is out the window now, out the picture.
6 races and you're out. I mean, we predicted this.
It's almost like someone had that on their. It's almost like someone had that on their bingo card. A rookie getting dropped mid-season. Almost like someone did have that, didn't they?
I think I predicted the exact rookie actually as well. So
that's
I think I finally got one.
So
there you go.
I think this
put my money where my mouth is. You get 6 rookies. You're like, oh, one of them's gonna get dropped.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it's quite a wide bet. Hey, but it cashed. I'll take it.
I think we saw it coming after they announced that they had signed Colapinto. But do you think it's a bit harsh? I think when you consider the fact that Williams have an option, Williams still have an option on Colapinto to bring him back. I think it's quite harsh. 6 races in.
I think it's really harsh.
You know the worst part? Like, Flavio is his manager.
Is Flavio?
Doohan's manager is Flavio. It's ridiculous.
Flavio. Oh.
But yes, I mean the whole thing. I will say it again and say like I have no trust in Alpine. I think it's mental that Flavio is. I mean.
Yeah, so that's
now team principal
in our grid news
as well.
Yeah, so grid news.
Yeah, moving into grid news then, really, because that was the last
rookie.
Well, one less rookie to talk about now, I suppose.
I feel like it goes as one.
It's all one. It's all
Flavio,
one pile of chaos, isn't it? Really, yeah.
Lifetime ban has been served. I'm guessing. I think he's been like pulling the strings for the last year at Alpine anyway. But something's happened. Something must have happened inside that team, as you were saying, Harry, because we've got the team principal, Oliver Oates, has gone. Flavio's now seemingly in.
Yeah.
And Doohan's gone. Colapinto's in. It's all change.
I think they've had a different team principal for each of the last.
Didn't they have Otmar a couple of years ago?
Like it's literally like, I think since Otmar's been like one a year, at least 3 years they've had literally
it's just
not
chaotic.
Lasting sort of more than Bolton. Like
I think it was last year
24, 25.
I think it was 23, 20. I think it was last season when they were horrific to start with. That like half their top team just walked away and said sorry about that.
But then
it was so bad there to walk away. So it's just been absolute chaos.
So Alpine are a Renault team, but Renault aren't making engines for 2026, so they have no faith in this Alpine side. they're not putting the money into developing the engine.
No, they're clearly no, because a serious F1 team doesn't have Flavio running the strings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
So
mean?
it's 4 team principals in under 5 years.
That's more managers
for
than
Alpine.
Tottenham have had.
Wow.
So I mean,
Yeah, that's what
yeah, that
Spurs.
is
Who
absolutely
is it,
ridiculous.
Watford, that goes through them every couple of months?
I just
Oh man, maybe they're the Watford of Formula One. I think, so they'll be with a Mercedes engine next year. But there's just, we talk about this all the time. I feel like Alpine
That could be a godsend for them.
I
That
feel
might
like
be
have
what they
the
need.
ingredients
Anyway,
to
sorry,
be
go on.
a more serious outfit, like a normal. But they're the laughing stock. I'd rather be.
They've got a major
I'd
car
rather
company
be
behind
an
them.
employee at Sauber than Alpine.
But like,
I mean, they're
don't go
French.
crazy.
What do you expect? Like, honestly, it's just
Just drama and chaos.
yeah, Rome's on the wall there.
It is just crazy to have Flavio back so prominently. Do you think that they'll cut to him on the pit wall? Oh, we've got Flavio with us this weekend. And then
But
next
I
up,
don't
he'll
know.
be campaigning to get the
Yeah,
he'll be
it's
campaigning
kind
to
of
get
a
the grid girls
disgrace,
back.
really, isn't it? yeah. Well, I mean, a stop clock is right twice a day.
The other big news from the weekend is that Verstappen obviously has had a baby. That baby is gonna be a female drivers' champion. I'm sorry, it's got
In
a
18 years'
grandfather
time.
is a
Yeah.
PK, a world champion, father, a 4-time world champion. They must be some of the best genes we've ever seen. I know that obviously it didn't work out. We saw
Best
Mick
racing
Schumacher
genes,
come in.
yeah.
It didn't
Yeah.
quite work out for him. But that they must be.
If we've got any Dune fans out there, it's like the Bene Gesserit have like manipulated this baby to be born to be like the perfect,
Yeah.
the Kwasi Karaach of F1
Yeah.
driver babies.
Yeah, I don't know what flag it will go under, Brazil or the Netherlands or Belgium. I don't know, but
Hey, she'll be
Well-
able to choose, and there you go. That's the sponsorship money right there. She can make
yeah,
a choice
there might be
whether's
some
best at
nice
the
money
time.
down there. But I'm sure. Yeah, I think who was it that joked? It was probably like Toto or someone that joked. That she should go by Verstappen PK for the marketing potential.
Yeah, hell yeah, she should.
Which I thought was
I mean, PK's
Yeah.
kind of tarnished his name a bit in the last few
But
years,
still.
but still, by the time she's grown up, that'll be long gone. And
Yeah,
but
being
the
a bit of a
championship for me,
racist, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll just brush the racism under the rug. It's fine. He's a world champion.
Yeah, I mean,
It's fine. So we've touched a bit on bingo. Kieran and Harry, I think you've both had some this week.
Yeah. So like we
I think
mentioned,
so.
Doohan being dropped. That's one for both of us, I guess. And for me as well, Antonelli pole. I did say I promised as well. I said he probably won't win, but he'll
Yeah.
get a pole.
Yeah.
Boom. Sprint pole. Sprint pole is good enough for
Nicely
me.
done.
Sprint pole is good enough for me.
I was gonna say, we weren't expecting it this quickly, but I mean, you had it down for the season, so
I did. Yeah, I did. I mean, it was a bit of a wishful one. It wouldn't have been on my like more serious predictions, but as far as bingo shouts go, I think I nailed it this weekend. Yeah. Should we do our
Oh yes,
Driver of the day, then?
Driver of the day. Kieran, you can start us off because I need more time to think.
oh no, that's why I introduced it so I could say you go first. But no, well, should we have a driver of the weekend considering
Yeah.
we had a sprint race in there as
Yeah.
well? Yeah, I think you can't look any further. I know I just said it was about the weekend and he didn't have a great Saturday because of a penalty and things like that. But I think based on putting that Williams P5, you've got to give it to Alex Albon this weekend.
Yeah.
Unlucky in the sprint, great pace all weekend, great result on the Saturday, really big points for Williams, and they look to be more and more competitive every week. So my driver of the day, driver of the weekend, Alex Albon.
I think he's had a great weekend. Harry, who are you going for?
I'll go with Antonelli. For that.
Yeah, that was my
for that
second
sprint
option.
prole is doing the carrying, but like P6 in the race. I mean, that's a great
It's not bad
result.
at all.
I mean, for Mercedes to really be up there in the constructors, they need both drivers to be firing on all cylinders, and I think he really is coming into his own. And I think this weekend it's probably been his best so far.
Yeah, I'm going to agree, and I'm going to say my driver of the weekend will be the whole weekend. I'm going to give it to Antonelli, but if it's just the race, I'd give it to Albon, because I think as a whole weekend, Antonelli did well. He was, not maybe the results in the races weren't as good, but his qualifying pace was fantastic. And you just have to put into context the fact that he is 18. He's raced 6 races in Formula One, so
Exactly.
yeah. Should we go quickly onto a bit of an Imola preview? Kieran, this race is on your birthday weekend. What would you like to see as a present?
Oh.
Oh.
What would I like to see? I like Imola. It's a good track. I'm trying to think of the racing it normally produces. I just like seeing a competitive race. I don't, I think as long as it's competitive, I'll be happy. I just don't want to see another 40 seconds down the road. That gets boring very quickly, in my opinion. It's not McLaren's fault. What are they meant to do? Drive slower? It's not their fault, but it does get boring very quickly when a team's that dominant. So I think actually maybe having a team that isn't Red Bull or McLaren win a race would be good. I don't think it's going to happen. But I think having another constructor win a race would be great. Maybe I'd like to see George win. This is like what I'd like. You asked me what I'd like, so I'm answering is that, not my actual predictions.
I'm not getting you anything.
I think a George Russell victory. If you can somehow orchestrate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. George Russell victory in Imola, that'd be cool. I'd quite like to see that. I think he deserves a win. He's not had a win in a little while now. Obviously not had a win this season. No one outside the Verstappen, Stree, Norris triumvirate have won a race yet. So someone else wins it. That's what I'd like for my birthday. That's what I'd like.
Harry, any prediction for you?
Do you know what? I really don't know. I'm glad we're getting back to the European tracks.
Yeah.
And the European time zone, selfishly for us in Europe.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see someone else be up there, but I think probably another McLaren win. Seems like they're getting stronger.
Yeah, it's hard to look past
rather
them at this
than
point.
Pat getting a bit closer, but yeah, I could see another Piastri win, I think.
Yeah. My prediction is that Verstappen will split the McLarens.
In the race.
Yeah, in the race. Yeah.
in
just
half.
with an axe, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I mean that he will come in second, sandwiched between the McLarens.
Yeah, I can
That
see it
is my
happening.
prediction. Yeah.
I can't really remember how the Red Bull performs there, so but hopefully it'll be a little bit more tight. I mean, the first half of this race I thought was good. The second half, not so much. So, if we get half and half, that's normally is better than nothing. So.
Yeah, because I think with what we saw this weekend, just to go back a bit, with the virtual safety cars, it nullifies the race, which is I think a good thing because people don't lose out on the advantage that they've gained, but it also does mean that you lose out on the excitement of a safety car restart.
Yeah.
So.
Also,
anyway.
I don't know if we have time for it now, but the time you lose under a virtual safety car you can actually have a bigger advantage because the cars don't get bunched up and you lose the position as much. The benefit you can get under a well-timed virtual safety car for you is actually massive compared to a regular safety car. There's not really a way around it for F1, but if you look at this weekend, Russell gained massively from that. But anyway, just a comment.
That's the luck of the draw. We'll move on to final thoughts because we've been going on for a little while now. Harry, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are This episode is going to be rubbish compared to next episode. Because I've got a little story time. Did a little F1 side quest. But as we're sort of at the end of this episode, I'll save it for next week. Give our listeners something to think about.
So, yeah.
And maybe there'll be a little fun little quiz in there as well.
Perfect.
I'll
Yeah.
have to start revising.
Yeah.
It's completely unrelated to the story. But
Okay.
I thought it was fun. So it's related to world events as well. So maybe it'll be relevant next week. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see if we're in World War 3 next week at this rate.
Kieran, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, as long as that's not my final thought. As long as the Miami racing is as good as it was this weekend, it pains me to say I don't mind it being on the calendar as much as I did last year.
For 2041, I forgot to add that into my grid news.
2041.
2041. I'm going to be in a wheelchair and a cane by that point. 2041.
I know what American stadiums are like. I wouldn't be amazed if they've had a new one rebuilt on top of the track at that point. But I think the racing has actually been better than we feared, and it's a better track than maybe we thought. The whole spectacle is still a bit gimmicky for me, but
yeah,
I think it's kind of just
the Lego
becoming.
car was good.
That sold it for me. That warmed me up to it a hell of a lot. So that's why I'd say whoever came up with the Lego cars has sold me on Miami.
It was like before you see the comedian, you have a warm-up act, and it makes you find the actual comedian much funnier. It was like that with Miami.
Loosened up,
I was loosened up. I was in a good mood.
Exactly.
So yeah, I actually agree with that. My final thought is, and I don't know how to prove this, but I'm convinced that the teams and the drivers get told or get paid to do special stuff for Miami, because I feel like from a fan's point of view, Miami is not one of my favorites. So how comes the drivers always have like special helmets, there's special liveries, there's special overalls?
Ovaries.
Ovaries, yes, overalls. Overalls.
With ovaries on the overalls.
And I just think it's odd because it's just another race.
Strange.
Why is it such a spectacle? And why does everyone treat it like it's such a spectacle?
Why do we need special liveries?
Yeah, exactly. You don't get that stuff. You get it for Monaco a bit, but you wouldn't get that stuff as much maybe for the British Grand Prix. And that's
no one's like putting kangaroos on the side of their car for the Australian Grand Prix. And that's a bit crude.
They should,
but you know what I mean. Or the British Grand Prix. Most of the teams are based in Britain.
Yep.
Like based in around Silverstone, and you don't really see any special liveries out for Silverstone.
Yeah, I think there was a Williams one. Williams did one with like the Union flag on it. Maybe it was their anniversary or Silverstone's anniversary. I can't remember. There was something.
But compared to like the furore around Miami, yeah,
it's weird. It's weird, and I don't know why it happens. But I guess it's the American market, and that's where the sport is at the moment. So
I think they
do the song and dance for
exactly.
it. But it's a bit odd. But that was my final thoughts. I'll wrap it up now. I will say, please join us next time for Harry's storytime / quiz.
It's going to be
great. As he's labelled it himself. So bring your blanket, as I have. Bring your hot water bottle. Get tucked up nice and comfy for Harry's story time. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Harry. Thank you, Kieran, for joining me for this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please subscribe. Kieran says hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
Smash that bell.
Follow us on social media. And listen to us next time. Thank you very much. And see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next
Bye.
week.